guys to show you how to use all of the new brushes in the 2017 brush set. So let's just go down here. The brushes that we've got are a variety of foliage brushes and some falling leaves, some atmosphere, some fog, some dust, and a new hairbrush. We've got a vine brush here, a water splash, and so forth. I'm going to show you a few different ones in this particular image here, how you can actually utilize them. So to start with, I've just brought in a few different images that I'm going to work with these brushes just to demonstrate. Now we're actually going to start with cutting out the bear and using my favorite tool, which is the hairbrush, and I've developed a brand new one for you. So to start with, when I cut out an animal, usually I do a very rough cut out to start with. So you can use the Smart Selection tool or you can do it manually. We'll just go around our bear here using the Smart Selection tool. And you see it went a bit too far, so we can bring it in by pressing Alt or Option and just move our mask around there, our selection. Now it's not perfect, but we don't mind because we're going to use the hairbrush tool. So we just mask that by clicking on the mask right down the bottom there. Now you can see it's pretty rough. Now I could use the select tool, I could go in, I could refine the edge and so forth, but I usually find that using a hairbrush to mask is much easier. So if I go up to my brushes, you should have loaded in your brush set if you've purchased that, or if you've got the sample, you'll have a few of these brushes in there. Now we're going to start by obviously making this brush the size that we want. At the moment, it's way too big, as you can see. Now you will find that this brush is actually set up for you with the ability to tilt your brush and it will turn it. So you can see as I actually tilt my brush, doesn't matter if it's an art brush or not, or an art pen, it will move. Now this isn't as controlled as using an art pen, so I do recommend to everyone, if you can, get an art pen, which is what I've got in my hand. If you've got the art pen, what you need to do is actually turn off pen tilt and turn on brush projection. And that will give you the ability to turn your brush around in the direction that you need it to. So what we're wanting to do here is use this brush to mask back. So what we do is we just make it a bit smaller and make sure it's on black, and we just run it along the edge. Now the first time that we do this, it will look a little rough, but the trick of this is just to go quickly around the edge with the hairbrush and then turn it around, turn your flow down, turn it around to the direction that you want, and then paint back with a lower flow along the area that you've already done. And doing this will even out the hair and it will make it look like real hair. Now you don't need to worry if there's some of the background coming into the scene or onto your bear or your animal, because you can do a little trick with that, which I'll show you in a moment. So I'll just do a little bit more of the bear. Now that I've used the brush to cut the bear out, there are some areas around the edge that I want to fix up and just bring in the tone of the bear. So where there's maybe a little bit of green showing through, a little bit of the background. So the easy way to do that is create a new layer, clip that to your animal, and you can use a normal brush for this, like a soft brush with 0% hardness. There's a couple of ways of doing it. If it's just very faint, you can get away with painting the color on, or you can use the stamp tool, make sure it's set to current and below, pick up some hair from nearby and just paint it on the edges there. And what that will do is it will bring in the tone of the hair from over here and place it in the right spot. So you can even tone down that layer a little bit later as well. So over here we need to bring in a little more of the dark hair there. Anywhere else that we see any issues, possibly in here. When you do this, it actually only applies to the mask. So the awesome thing about this is that it will not apply over here. So if we actually turn that clipping mask off, you can see what happens. Now, if I want it just to apply where we've masked the bear with our hairbrush, so that hairbrush is possibly, for your extraction, it's possibly going to be your most used brush. I brought in some very interesting grass. If I turn that off, you can see the grass there now. I'll bring it behind the bear at the moment so we can see where in the grass that bear would fit. And I'll just place a gradient mask on it for now because I'm going to show you how you would actually then use the grass brushes that I've got to make it look more realistic. So we're sort of going to make it look like that grass is fading into the horizon back there, something like that. We do need to bring the sky up higher to match the horizon, so we'll do that. So the horizon of the sky is around there, so we want that light to come through, something like that. And so the first thing we want to do is make that grass look more realistic at the back. Instead of faded, it's going to look like it's all sticking out. Now normally it would be very hard to cut around grass like that, but if we use this blades of grass tool, this brush that I've created, and in the same way we can paint it through our scene there. So we make it white, we'll turn the flow up to start with just so you can see the effect, and you can see the grass is showing up. We want to make the grass about the size that it would be in the background there. And now another thing to vary how it looks so it doesn't look repetitive, you can go into the brush settings, turn up the angle jitter, turn up the size jitter as well. Not too much, but enough that every time you paint with it, it actually moves the brush around. So we're bringing back the grass that's there. Now we can do the same thing by turning this around. So if we go into brush tip shape, or if you've got it switched on to brush projection with the art pen, you can turn it around manually. But you turn it around like this so it's pointing down, and X to change it to black, and then we paint out the area across the top as well. So very similar method to the way that we did the bear, and you go back and forth a few times, maybe with some different brush sizes, back around there. Not looking perfect at the moment, but we're going to go back to how we had it. So turning it around this way, and press X, and we're painting it back again. We'll leave that for now. That does need some refining, and we'll come back to that with some fog and mist brushes on the horizon. But we're going to do a very similar thing with the bear down here because we want to make it look like our bear is actually in the grass, not outside the grass. Now you could do this one of two ways. You could actually bring some grass on top of the bear, which is a non-destructive way of doing it. You could mask into the bear, but then if you make a mistake, you have trouble because you've already masked your bear, you will mess up your mask. So we are going to click on Alt, duplicate our grass, bring it above the bear like that. We'll turn this particular layer mask off and create a totally new layer mask, and then invert it, Command I for invert. Now what that means now is that we can sort of paint back that grass where we want it. So we go back to our grass blades brush, and we're revealing grass on top of the bear. So usually I make the brush small to start with and build up around the base, so around the feet area where all that grass will be hiding the bear's feet. So building that up around there just by sort of holding the pen down and colouring in a way, and then dabbing larger areas of grass in front of the bear like that, wherever we want it to show up. So you just play around with it. If you mess it up, you can always go back because you've got a mask there. So it's now looking much more like that bear is in the grass rather than on top of the grass. Now, we can use a clipping mask again on this and lighten up some of the reeds that are in front if we want to sort of match those little soft little bits that are there. So create a new layer, create a clipping mask, just get a soft brush again, pull the colour from the light area. So using Alt, you can pull the colour from the light area of one of these, anywhere you think it will match, or you can just actually manually get the colour if you need to, and just paint or dab where you think it needs some little soft bits. So if it has those little, I don't know, bauble-y bits or soft fluffy bits on the end, you do need to match that because the mask won't necessarily pick those up when you're painting with it. So you can do that by using a clipping mask. Some areas won't work, you can actually erase it if you need to. And then you can change the blending mode. So something like hard light usually works well. Turn it down so it's not as obvious, and then that's blending in a whole lot more. Okay, now we've got the bear in the grass, we've got the sunlight behind, so we do need some lighting effects on there, mainly showing you the uses of the brush. So now what we need in this horizon at the back where that grass is blending into the sky, we need some sort of foggy, warm, soft light. Now usually I would create a layer just above or underneath the bear, just above the grass, and to start with, go with a very soft brush. Go with the colour that I want, so something like a very soft, warm white, like that. Make the brush really large, click on one end, hold down Shift, click on the other end. Now, see what happened here? My brush that I selected is pressure sensitive. Now I don't want that. Now up the top here, I haven't got that pressure sensitive button clicked, but it is down to the brush that I've chosen here. So sometimes that can get confusing. So you just need to go into brush presets and go up to the one that is not pressure sensitive. We'll do that again. Click there, click Shift, click there. Okay, now then pull that right down, pull the opacity down. Maybe do one more of those, a little smaller. And usually the closer it is to the sun, usually the lighter it is. So we'll just lighten that down a bit. Click there, maybe make that hard light mode, turn that one down. Now we've got some fog in the background. It is helping to blend it, but it's not perfect yet. We do need to do some more work to the sun as well. So we're going to create another layer and go into our brushes, and in here I've got a few that you might find very helpful, and there's some dust effects, some dust and rain effects, and some foggy sort of atmospheric effects. There's one that's really interesting light. So what we're going to do is click, so we've created a blank layer, just click where we want this atmospheric light to be. So you know when you're pointing into the sun or you're shooting into the sun and it's the end of the day and you get this really beautiful sort of light flecks of dust coming through because the light is backlighting it, that is what we're replicating here. You can change the blending mode, so you could do hard light, overlay, might work well, turn the opacity down. So you're creating layers that help to blend the atmosphere. We might even bring this one down a bit more. You build up on that atmosphere that is over the back here. So that's one atmospheric brush that works really, really well. And you could go in with a slightly darker orange and then do something similar sort of down further in the grass there. And again, change your blending mode, possibly hard light for that one, or even soft light. You can play around until you get the look that you want. Pull that opacity down so you're building up on the atmosphere that is between the bear and the horizon. So that's a really cool thing. Now that we've got that warm light happening across the horizon there, I do want to warm up the background. Now, if you bring in a cloud scene or something like that, if you leave it as a smart object, if you double click that smart object, you've got full control over the white balance. And I want to warm this up to match how my scene is starting to look. And maybe even make it a little bit brighter. So by pressing OK, that will change this sky completely in its non-destructive editing. So that is starting to look a whole lot better. Now where we've got a bit too much atmosphere, maybe this one here, again we can play with the blending mode. So it's a matter of building it up over several layers until you get that look that you want. So some of these layers are looking a little heavy-handed and it is a build-up. It's not a one fix. Maybe bring a bit more atmosphere down here. So we could go with a foggy brush now. Usually I like to go with a purer white colour because you can tone it down, but just with a touch of warmth to it. Now if we start here, I've actually set up this brush so that it does vary when you paint with it. It moves around and it creates that sort of foggy, smoky effect. Now you can change all the settings in these brushes to suit. You can create new settings from that, but I've tried to make the settings to be the ones that you would use them on the most. So I find having it so it moves around, changes size slightly, and so that you can actually draw with it and paint with it is the most effective. So this is a smoky, foggy sort of brush that really helps to create that atmosphere behind. Now that we've got the atmosphere here, it does really look like this area of the sky is too bright. So we can go back into, again, our smart object. We can actually get a brush or a gradient tool and we can lighten this area up to match with the feel of the scene. So we really want to warm it up a bit and bring those shadows up in that area. Maybe bring the whites down so we're sort of making it a bit flatter. Okay, so that works more, but now that we've lightened the sky, what we find is this grass that we created before is a little messy. So I'm going to go into that grass and just go with a, maybe even my smoke brush, and just paint it back along the horizon line there. Okay, so you can see as you start working with the scene, you start realizing what needs moving, what needs changing, and so forth. Even now that we've lightened up the sky around the bear, it is a bit dark around those edges. So all we need to do is go back to our bear, go back to the clipping mask, click on, just go with a soft brush, pick up a bit of light coloured fur, and just paint it very carefully around the edge of that clipping mask layer so that the colour of the fur around the edge of our bear is actually rim lit and matches the rest of the bear. So you can just pick that colour up from nearby and just paint that in. Now while we're at it, we do need to do a little more lighting on the bear to match. So what we will do is create this is in another tutorial, so I'm not going to go in depth in it, but it's a levels adjustment layer. We need to first of all do some rim light, so we'll take that slider and bring it up to the middle. We'll change that to screen mode. We will clip that to our bear and we will invert it, Command I. Got our soft brush. We're just going to create a little bit of extra light on this side of the bear where the light is hitting. And some rim light Turn that flow down so it's very subtle. Some rim light around the ears, around the edge of the head, around this ear here. Just a little more around the edge of the bear. So that's matching the light, and we'll turn it down a bit. It's not too much. And then we need to do the shading. So we go with exactly the same process. Levels, adjustment layer, levels. Take the light out of the scene, so bring the slider from the right to the middle. Change it to multiply and create a clipping mask, invert it, and now where that light is not falling on our bear, we just make it a little darker on that side of him. Just be careful around the contours. Press X if you need to kind of fix it up. So you're masking again. So you're using a mask on and off, on and off. In some darker areas down here because the light's coming from behind, so there'd be a bit more light on this side. The light coming from behind, but this bit here would be dark. There, there. And then we're overdoing it again, so we'll just paint where we need to. And then turn that opacity down until it feels about right. Just subtle. Okay, so that's looking much, much better. Still want some light from the sky to actually spill over the top. But I do have some lens flares and so forth in the Story Art Brush Pack 1, so I might show you that one. So there's a lens flare brush that you could grab that very light colour. I'd go even as close to white as you can. You've got this right on the top, so the layer above everything else. Click where that sun is. Make sure that your flow is up so you can see it. Click where that sun is, and that gives you a sun flare, which you would then again use your blending modes and sort of have that so it flows over the grass and it fits in. I do a couple of these layers, one bigger, one smaller, so I actually bring the bigger one underneath and click again. That one we would tone down more, so we'd have one that's in the middle is brighter, you know, the smaller one, and the one that's behind isn't quite as bright, but it's still spreading light across. So that helps to bring the scene together, which is really, really cool and a very quick way of doing it. So that brush is in Story Art Brush Pack 2016. So you'll find both brush packs have some very handy brushes in them, and that one is from that pack. We'll go back to your general soft brush, create a new layer, put it on top. Okay, so we're just going to add a little light flare, a light dab over the top of the bear there, and where that sun sort of following the line of the bear to the head. Now that's obviously way too bright, but again, hard light mode, turn it right down, just a little bit of light spill that's coming across. I do a few of these layers and just build up on it so that it makes it feel like your animal, your bear, whatever it is in the scene, that the light is surrounding it, and yeah, that it's part of it. So it really helps to just build up on this kind of thing bit by bit. And you can always use a mask if you feel, oh, there's a little bit too much, you know, over here, you want to see a bit more orange in the sky. You can mask that layer and play with it where you need it. Okay. So again, that's helping to bring some more light into the scene. We'll do another dab on this side. And I can bring in some colour from this side so it's not quite as bright. And just grab colour and light from around and paint over the top. So I call this painting with light, and it's grabbing the light from around the sky area and you're blending and dabbing light all around. Now we've got a few more brushes to show you here. I've created some that I really, really like. This was a really fun brush to make. I got my kids to actually blow some dandelions, and they just look so cool. So I've included these as a brush, and you just need to make it the size that you want, create a layer on top, and just dab once. And again, we make some smaller ones as well. And then tone it down however you want it. Make hard light mode to help blend, or overlay mode to help blend. Playing with your different modes to help those little bits blend. If you find you've done too much, or it's too obvious, or you want to make them smaller, you can do a mask and mask it back. So always use layer masks if you want to get rid of some of them. Very easy to do. So I might get rid of some of these ones up the top and make a few smaller ones there. So create a new layer, go back to the dandelions, and I've got one that does some smaller ones here, and just dab, dab, dab. So they're just blowing in the wind, and that's another bit of atmosphere that you can add to, you know, many different scenes. If you put some in front of the bear as well, again, it helps to blend. I might get rid of those ones that are right up the top, they don't quite fit, so I'll just mask them out. But it really works around here, especially around the grass, because it's again helping blend. So there are those. I have some other ones like that, like falling leaves and rocks and things that wouldn't really fit this scene, but I will create a new layer and just show you them. So I'll go through them so you can see, and you'll have different scenes where they match. So you might have some debris and dirt and dust that you need to kick up, and that would be one of those ones. You might have more debris. So that's if you're, you know, you've got something falling rocks, whatever it is, you can use that. You can actually paint them on, or you can use them to mask. Some leaves, again, throwing or falling in the wind, and you can make them different colors, or you can mask something in. So yeah, there's quite a few like that. So I might just show you, without it being part of this scene, because it's not going to match, how you would actually add some ivy to this scene. All you need is another image of foliage, and usually it's good to get it from the scene that you're kind of working with, but if you can build up a collection of these, that works too. So I'm just going to actually grab this. I'll probably just increase the saturation a bit. I'll open that as a smart object in Photoshop, and we'll drag this over to the bear image. Now, as I said, this is not going to match, so I'm not going to leave it in here, but it will give you an idea of, you know, just what you can do with brushes and how you can create foliage that was never there in a really easy way. Turn it around like this, and we'll just place it sort of over the bear. Maybe I'll make it look like there's some vines growing up over the bear. So all you need to do is create a layer mask and Control or Command I, which means that you can paint it back. We go to whichever mask or whichever brush that we want. We're going to use this one, which is the ivy one. Make it the size you want. Make sure you're on white. Just click where you want that ivy to grow. The thing that I love is that doing it this way means you get all the texture of those leaves. So, you know, if you were just to paint green with just a plain green, I'll show you what would happen. You just get your brush, go with green, whatever color it is that you think the ivy should be, and you paint, you're getting a very flat, lifeless bit of ivy. But if you're masking back something that is there, you're actually making it look like it really is ivy. So you can do that with all sorts of things, and this is one of my most used methods to make something appear that wasn't there, and especially with ivy. So you'll love this ivy brush, and again, it's set up to tilt. So this is a tilting brush, which means that you can move it around and put it wherever you want. So it's a really cool brush. So I've shown you all of the brushes, and there is actually one other one there that I haven't shown you. It's a splash. Now the interesting thing about this one is you can use white for this. So if I just click on, make sure that my brush is white, and I click, if I had that near water, it would make it look like a splash. So if you're needing to add a splash somewhere, there is a water brush there that will look like a splash. Doesn't quite look like a splash when it's in the grass, but you get the idea. So I really hope you enjoy these brushes and they come in handy. If you have any questions about them, please let me know, but I absolutely love them. I use them all the time, which is why I created them, so that I can use them and I can share them with you.